So let me sum this up. Europe, namely the powerhouses of Germany and France, are going through, and also the ex-member of the European Union, Britain, are going through economic difficulties. And it's if you look at the charts of the economic growth of Germany, for example, you see that a lot is due to their external policy. You have that. You have inflation, because although inflation is, the rate is slowing it down, the price increase, it's still very much significant. I, as a worker myself, for example, feel it very much. It doesn't have any prospects of getting better. For example, in England, they have this Keir Starmer now, you know, this prime minister in England, which is going to return to austerity measures. He's saying that himself. I mean, austerity feels a little bit like the COVID, right? If you look at back now, it seems like all those measures weren't really needed. It seems, I'm not saying it for sure. Okay, YouTube. So you have that, economic stagnation, and you have the democracy crisis in France as well. Mr. Macron doesn't want to let go. And then all this for what? On top of this, you have people still vowing for Ukraine. They don't have any money to spend. They have to cut on their NHS or public services or whatever. But there's always that extra package of money for Ukraine. And the funny part, which is not that funny, is that Ukrainians, the average Ukrainians, do not see it. Well, they might see it in a way that the country doesn't totally crumble. But then again, if that's the price they are paying, the price they have to pay for that is way too steep. That's what I mean. You know, with all those forced mobilizations, a lot of casualties, basically no economy. And this is what we have. This is the general picture in the West, macro picture in the West. And for me, it's still hard to understand how all this works. And then you visit countries like China and Russia, and actually people there are living better, and they don't have the burdens that are being imposed on European people. And it's still strange. Don't get me wrong, I'm not radicalizing my speech saying that, oh, Europe is like everyone is dying of hunger or anything like this. I'm not overreacting, but things don't look good. And things don't look good now, and they don't look like they're gonna get better. And of course, you have a lot of, if you go through the streets of many cities in Europe now, you see the poverty increase, right? And then on top of all this, you have crimes like, for example, the Nord Stream, very serious crimes being committed against, for example, German property. Nord Stream being the case, as I said. And it's okay. Never mind. This is the stance of the German government. You have, in the political spectrum, you have the rise of this right-wing but they are not all the same. For example, in Portugal, I'm just giving Portugal as an example, not that it has a big weight on things in the European world, but we're getting the same phenomenon here, and it's a bit different. You have right-wing parties, for example, like Orban's, which is against all this madness, all this external policy in Ukraine. And you have the Portuguese example, which is bootlicker for whatever the powers that be wanted to do. You know, it's there for cheering for Ukraine, cheering for NATO, cheering all the. It seems like more of a Democrat American party, kind of that, mixed with a little bit of speech from the Republicans. I know some of you might argue this is otherwise, more of a Republican with bits of a Democrat, but think again. I'm not going to go into depth into this now. They are in favor of warmongering and spreading hate. But then you have others that simply wanna, Eurosceptics. Like I said, they are not in favor of this madness going on in Ukraine. They are in favor of peace. I don't know. I think it depends on the agenda of the elites of each country where it appears. It's my strong suspicion. And then while we are having all this crisis, economic and social, political crisis in Europe, big part because of the madness in Ukraine, the Ukrainians themselves are having the worst of it, the worst end of it. And not only they have to put up with their corrupt Western-backed government, I'm talking about the Ukrainian people, but they also have to go and die in a war that a minority in their country wants to fight. I mean the NAZI guys. But the common person has no freedom there, has no freedom to express other political ideas, and it's quite dangerous. For example, if you express any solidarity with communism, for example, or with the communist legacy, because you might have, remember, relatives that have fought against the Nazis in World War II. You might want to respect their memory. No, forget about that in Ukraine. It's American style shrugging off of history and culture, and really bad. And you have this pseudo government in Ukraine led by Zelensky. I mean, led, but it's not really led because it's a puppet government by the US. Just cleaning up government cabinets after government cabinets. You know, I remember that because now it's like half of the cabinet. Even the foreign affairs minister who was there from the beginning, you know, that voice in the UN, even that one resigned. And it's not new, because I remember in the beginning, in the first year, there were shuffles, there were murderings, there were helicopter crashes. A lot was done to put the right places in power. And now Zelensky, a president who is not legitimate anymore, according to Ukraine's constitution, is moving forward with this. And I really have the trouble why we spend so much time looking, for example, at the Venezuelan elections. So much time, so much scrutiny, so much attention from everyone. And yeah, everyone discussing if it's right or if it's not, pointing every little thing they might find not according to their own beliefs. It works like this. And then you have countries like Ukraine with everything less but democratic. It's not democratic. Don't trust it. It's bullshit. Doing what it does at will. I'm not even mentioning Israel. I mean, this whole ordeal, led by the United States, with its having Europe by the leash, really changed the world. I mean, even the organizations who traditionally claimed that they were not politicized, they suddenly become dominated. Of course, a lot of it, a lot of the propaganda we heard, all the story, it's utter bullshit. I mean, take this recent example. In the beginning, they were saying, we're going to isolate Russia, it's going to crumble in 15 days. Something like this. You remember this, right? They're going to starve, the shelves on their supermarkets are going to go empty, and they're going to rebel and overthrow Mr. Putin. This part only showed the ignorance of the people who believed in this plan. Really, really much. Really, the lack of knowledge about general things. And then the isolation. But we've seen the recent case I was about to mention of Mongolia. Mongolia, which did sign the Rome Statute, and so it adhered to the ICC, refused pure and simply to fulfill the mandate, the arrest warrant for the Russian Federation President, Vladimir Putin. And then every news was going on about it. And some were, are they going to arrest him? Are they not going to arrest him? And did you see the arrival? I mean, one could joke about it. I mean, he was received the best way they could receive him, with all official ceremonies and this guard of honor and all this apparatus. And I mean, if you think about it, it's not like Mongolia has a tradition of obeying to European desires. If you recall well, Mongolia is not that kind of country. They have excellent relations with Russia, as most of countries in the world have excellent relations. I remind you of the similar episode, although for other reasons Mr. Vladimir Putin didn't go himself, was the visit to South Africa, where you had the representatives there saying that they would not arrest the president of the Russian Federation. And they publicly heavily criticized the leader of the ANC, the way the West and the Americans were doing things, the double standards and all this shit. Russia was expelled from the Olympics. Russia was another non-politic event, expelled from song contests. It's, you name it, it's ridiculous. And then what were the reasons? Oh, the barbaric aggression on Ukraine. Well, okay, I could agree with those reasons. I really could agree with those reasons. Those are reasons. I mean, if you are violating human rights, hypothetically, because war is war, and a lot of the claims were not proven. That's how I'm saying hypothetically. Or maybe if you are committing aggression to your neighboring country with no reason whatsoever, which I don't think it's the case. But let's suppose these arguments are right. Okay, but then you wouldn't have Israel on any competition, on any song contest. You wouldn't have the United States. The United States would be the isolated country by that standards. Don't you agree? A lot of European countries would be out of those competitions too. I mean, just remember Yugoslavia, remember Libya, remember Syria, remember Iraq, remember Afghanistan. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling now, but think about all this. Think if it makes sense. And I'm gonna tell you one last thing. Freedoms in Russia and in China, like they're always telling us on TV, that these are countries that are adversaries. These are countries that violate freedoms. Go there by yourself. Or if you don't have, for example, maybe you don't have the possibilities to go there, okay? And this is unfair if you don't have the possibilities, but there are tons of travelers who have posted it on YouTube. Go and see, go and check that out. People going on about in Russia, walking about, talking to people, living in Russia, living in China. Go and see for yourself. Maybe you'll find a surprise, unless you're really keen to a blind belief, and that's, if you're one of those persons, I'm sorry. There's not a lot can be done for you. Okay, guys, I hope I see you on the next one.